There are apartments in Paris that feel beautifully designed, and then there are apartments that seem to have absorbed the passage of time. This vintage Paris apartment belongs to the second kind. From the street outside to the quietest corner within, every detail suggests that the past was never completely asked to leave. Before entering, the building already establishes the atmosphere. Its traditional Parisian façade carries the familiar rhythm of tall windows, stone surfaces, wrought iron details, and carefully proportioned openings. Nothing feels unnecessarily dramatic. Instead, the architecture creates a quiet sense of permanence, as though this building has watched generations of Paris move around it. The exterior gives us the first clue about what might be waiting inside. The vertical proportions, restrained ornament, and aged stone create a visual language that feels unmistakably French. Even before seeing the apartment, we begin to understand that the interior will not need excessive decoration. The architecture itself has already provided its character. The entrance is more than a physical transition. It is the moment when the contemporary city begins to disappear behind us. The sounds of Paris gradually become distant, while older materials, softer colors, and carefully preserved architectural details begin to take over. Crossing this threshold feels almost like stepping through a boundary between two different eras. Inside, the entrance hall does not immediately reveal everything. Instead, it works like the opening scene of a film, giving us fragments of what lies ahead. A glimpse of molding, a glimpse of wood, and perhaps the edge of a French door are enough to create anticipation. The apartment reveals itself gradually, never all at once. And then we encounter the detail promised by the title, the French door. Its glass panels, slender framing, and traditional proportions do something surprisingly powerful. They divide the apartment while preserving visual connection between rooms. More importantly, they frame the spaces beyond them like scenes in a historical painting, inviting us to wonder what waits on the other side. Beyond the French doors, the living room opens with a sense of calm rather than spectacle. Vintage furniture sits comfortably against architectural details that may be considerably older. The arrangement feels collected instead of manufactured, as if pieces have gradually found their places over many years. This is where the apartment begins to feel less like a decorated property and more like a lived story. The walls deserve to be read almost like pages in an old book. Their colors, textures, and imperfections contribute to the atmosphere without demanding attention. Rather than making everything perfectly uniform, the interior allows subtle traces of age to remain visible. This restraint creates something increasingly rare, a home where time itself becomes part of the decoration. Morning changes the apartment completely. Sunlight passes through the French doors and windows, revealing details that might remain invisible under artificial lighting. The furniture becomes softer, the walls appear warmer, and the architectural lines become more pronounced. The apartment does not simply receive light. It seems to collaborate with it, allowing the interior to transform naturally throughout the day. The furniture is equally important, but not because every piece needs to be antique. What matters is proportion, material, and character. A vintage chair, an aged wooden table, or a softly upholstered sofa can communicate the same language as the architecture. The most successful pieces are those that support the apartment's history rather than competing with it. Patina becomes especially meaningful here. A worn wooden edge, softened fabric, or slightly faded surface might appear imperfect when viewed separately. Together, however, these marks create continuity. They suggest that beauty does not always come from preservation without change. Sometimes, the most convincing vintage interiors are beautiful precisely because they allow evidence of life to remain visible. Every memorable interior has a place that does not immediately demand attention. Here, perhaps it is a small reading corner, a chair beside a window, or an understated arrangement tucked away from the main living area. Its importance comes from its quietness. It reminds us that a home is not designed only for photographs, but also for pauses, solitude, and everyday rituals. The bedroom offers a softer interpretation of the same vintage language. Colors become quieter, textures more tactile, and furniture more personal. Another French door may connect the bedroom to an adjacent space, allowing daylight to move gently through the interior. Here, the architecture becomes less formal and more intimate, reminding us that historic design can also feel deeply comfortable. even the bathroom can participate in the apartment's larger story. Traditional-inspired materials, aged-looking finishes, natural stone, or vintage hardware can establish continuity without turning the room into a historical replica. The most successful approach is not to recreate the past literally, but to understand its vocabulary and translate that vocabulary for contemporary living. By afternoon, the atmosphere shifts again. The sunlight becomes lower and more directional, emphasizing texture across walls, floors, furniture, and door frames. Details that seemed subtle earlier suddenly become expressive. This changing light reveals one of the apartment's greatest strengths. Its beauty is not fixed. It evolves naturally as the day moves across the rooms. Some of the most meaningful elements are also the easiest to overlook. A door handle, an old hinge, a carved etch, a slightly irregular surface, or a tiny transition between materials can tell us more about craftsmanship than a large decorative object. These details reward slower viewing. They remind us that vintage design is often discovered through observation rather than immediately announced. As evening arrives, artificial lighting replaces the daylight, and the apartment becomes more intimate. Warm pools of illumination emphasize furniture and architectural features while leaving other areas slightly quieter. The French doors now become silhouettes and reflections, transforming from functional elements into atmospheric frames. The same apartment that felt open in daylight suddenly feels private and almost cinematic. Perhaps the most important design decision is not what was added, but what was protected. The original architectural elements are allowed to remain visible and meaningful. This approach creates a stronger sense of authenticity because the apartment does not have to pretend to be old. Its age is already present in the structure, the materials, and the proportions. Leaving this vintage Paris apartment, the most memorable element may not be a particular sofa, molding, color, or piece of furniture. It may be the feeling created by all of them together. Every French door offered another perspective, another layer, another quiet reminder of Parisian life. And perhaps that is what makes this home so compelling. It does not simply preserve the past. It gives the past a place to keep living.